भैया क्या
Good afternoon, students.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, students. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, fine, thank you. Today we are going to discuss four different points. One is the role of programming language. Second is the programming environments. Third point is the virtual computer. And fourth point is the binding types. These four points today we are going to learn. Okay. Now, first of all, now the role of a computer languages. The programming language functions at many different levels and has many roles. The programming language functions at many different levels. At different levels, it has many roles and should be evaluated with respect to those levels and rules. According to the levels and according to the rules, we have to write the programming language. The historically programming languages have had a limited role, that of writing executable programs. Historically, programming languages have had a limited role, that of writing executable programs. As programs have grown in complexity, the role alone has proved insufficient. Many design and analysis techniques have arisen to support other necessary rules. Object-oriented techniques help in the analysis and design phases. Object-oriented languages to support the implementation of phase of object-oriented (OO). But in many cases, these lack uniformity of concepts, integration with the development environment, and commonality of purpose. Historically programming languages means Fortran. In the previous lecture, we discussed this. So many programming languages are there. Fortran is there, Algol is there, COBOL is there, BASIC is there, programming language, Pascal is there, C is there, C++ is there, C hash is there. In the previous lecture, we have seen all these. So many programming languages are there. So many these programming languages are there. Ada, Basic, Smalltalk, C, C++, C hash, COBOL, Fortran, Java, Pascal, Python, Visual Basic. In so many different languages are there, so different levels are there, different roles are there for each programming language. For each and every programming language, there is its level, there is its role. For example, now Fortran is the one of the programming language. This is the Fortran, right? Formula translation. Formula translation. Popular for scientific and mathematical applications. For what purpose? For what level? What is the role of this language? What purpose this programming language is there? For the scientific and mathematical applications. This programming language is for particularly for the what level? Scientific and mathematical applications. It is designed for new IBM 704, which had index registers and floating point hardware. From this language, means Fortran language, onwards, the idea of compilation came into existence. When this idea came into existence, when Fortran language onwards, the idea of compilation came into existence. The first implemented version of Fortran, has some features. Names could have up to 6 characters only. Post-test counting loop such as do was present. Do statement is there. It has formatted input-output I/O. It allows user-defined subprograms. There were no data typing statements. In Fortran. Fortran 1, Fortran 2, Fortran, its version. Fortran 1, Fortran 2 is the version. Fortran 4 is the version. So many such versions are also developed during in that year. It is mentioned in 1957. In 1957, it was discovered. The IBM Mathematical Formula Translating System. It is a general purpose programming language, high level programming language. Its role is for numeric and scientific computing. As an alternative to assembly language. At that time, in 1957, this Fortran is an alternative for the assembly language, because in writing the programs in assembly language is quite difficult than the high level program writing in high level language. Oldest programming language, Fortran is one of the oldest programming language still used today. This Fortran 1 first version, it was discovered in 1957. In Fortran 2, its new version, that is it was discovered in 1958, and Fortran 4, it was discovered in 1977, and again it is implemented in 1990. In Fortran 77, the character string handling features was introduced. What? Character handling features means what? If then else statement were introduced in this Fortran programming language. Before that, in the version 1 and in version 2, such features was not there. In 1977 and in 1990, such features, string handling features, character string handling features introduced. If then else like the if then else statement. Most significant changes took place in Fortran 19 by allowing use of modulus, dynamic arrays, pointers, exception, case statements, parameter type checking. Such all character string handling features introduced in this Fortran. So many such programming languages are there. We discussed this all in the previous lecture, right? Here. So this is the one of the example of programming language, right? Fortran. If we consider the Lisp as the programming language, right? Lisp programming or Lisp processing. It is the Lisp processing language. This Lisp is the Lisp processing language. This language is used in the research of artificial intelligence. And the syntax of this Lisp is based on the lambda calculus. Lambda calculus. Algol 60 is also one of the programming language. Algol, ALGOL, Algol 60. It supports the block structure. It has two parameter passing method. It supports the subprogram recursion. If we consider the next programming language, COBOL, Common Business Oriented Programming Language. The first micro facility in high level language, that is in COBOL. The first micro facility in a high level language. This COBOL has a support for hierarchical data structures. This COBOL has a support for hierarchical data structures. This COBOL contains nested selection statements. Long names for variables up to 30 characters were allowed with hyphens. COBOL has a separate data division. This is about the COBOL. If we consider BASIC as the programming language, this beginners all-purpose symbolic instruction code. It is easy to use and learn. BASIC programming language is easy to use and learn. And the current popular version of BASIC is the Visual Basic. The current popular version of a BASIC language is the Visual Basic. If we consider the programming language Pascal, right? The Pascal is designed initially for teaching structured programming. Teaching structured programming. And Pascal was small, simple and easy to learn. It is small, simple and easy to learn. If we consider the programming language as a C programming language developed in 1972 for system programming. C programming language has powerful set of operators. C programming language has a powerful set of operators. Though designed as a system language, it has been used in many application areas. Though C programming language developed in 1972 for system programming, even though it is designed as a system language, it has been used in many application areas. If we take the example of this C++. C++ is an interesting experiment in adopting advantages of object-oriented to a traditional programming language and development environment. C++ is developed as Bell Labs in 1980. And C++ support for both procedural and object-oriented features. C++ support for both procedural and object-oriented features. So it is in the theoretical part, it is mentioned here, object-oriented. Not only for this, but also not only before solutions were known to many issues, but before the issues were even widely recognized. So C++ was developed in the mid-80s, that is the 1980s. Mid-80s supported non-specialized tools found in the Unix program development environment. There are solutions to the problems that C++ uncovered. C++ has gone down a path in research, but now we know what the problems are and what to solve them and how to solve them. Let's adopt or develop such languages. Fortunately, such languages have been developed which are of the industrial strength, meant for the commercial projects. And are just academic research projects. It is now up to the industry to adopt them on a wider scale. C++, however, retains the problems of the old order of software production. C++ has an advantage over C as it supports many fields of object orientation. These can be used for some analysis and design. For the processes of analysis, design, and organization, however, are still largely external to the C++. C++ has not realized the important advantages of integrated software development that leads to improved economics of software production. So this C++, it was developed in 1980s. It supports for both procedural and object-oriented features. Now, Java is an interesting development, taking a different approach to the C++. If we consider this Java programming language, this Java programming language developed by Sun Microsystems. It is developed by Sun Microsystems systems in 1990. This Java is based on the C++. Java supports only object-oriented programming. Java contains references but no pointers. Java contains references but no pointers. Java has a facility and support for applets and concurrency. Java has libraries for applets, graphical user interfaces, database access. Java is widely used for web programming. This Java is widely used for the web programming. Java is an interesting development, taking a different approach to the C++. Strict compatibility with C is not seen as a relevant goal, contrary to the initial goal of the C++ to be as compatible as possible with C. Java is not the only C-based alternative to C++ in the object-oriented world. There has also been Objective-C from Breadbox and mainly used in NEXT OpenStack environment. So this is about the Java programming language. So many such programming languages are there. According to their levels, according to their roles, we have to choose in which programming language we should write the program. C, it is a general purpose software. C++, it is object-oriented programming. Java is also one of the object-oriented programming, but this it is widely used for the web programming. So this is all about the role of programming languages. What is the role of so many different programming languages are there? So what is the role of each and every programming language? Just now we discussed Proton, COBOL, BASIC, Pascal, C, C++, Java, and so on. Are you getting it now, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Can I proceed? Can I proceed? Okay. Thank you, Yogesh. Now, next our point is the programming environments. Programming environments. Programming environment is an environment in which the programs can be created and tested. What is programming environment? The programming environment is an environment in which the programs can be created and tested. Programming environment consists of a collection of support tools that are used in the software development. Programming environment consists of a collection of support tools that are used in the software development. Each support tool is basically one kind of program which is used by the programmer during the stages of creation of program. During the stages of creation of program. These tools are, what are those tools? Editors are there, debuggers are there, verifiers, data generators, and so on. So this programming environment consists of the collection of support tools. What are those tools? Editors, debuggers, verifiers, data generators, and so on. All such tools that are used in the software development. Each such tool, support of tools means either the editors or the debuggers or the data generators. Each support tool is basically one kind of program which is used by the programmer during the stages of creation of program. After creation, a testing will be done. The term programming environment is sometimes reserved for environments containing language specific editors and source level debugging facilities. So now effect on language design. The programming environment influences on language design in two major areas, namely separate compilation and second is the testing and debugging. This programming environment influences on language design. Programming environment. What is programming environment? Programming environment in which the programs can be created and the programming environment influences on language design. First one, in two major areas. What are those two major areas? First is the separate compilation. Second is the testing or debug. Testing or debug. Now, separate compilation. This is one major area in the programming environment influence on language design. Separate compilation. There are varying number of programmers working on design. There are varying number of programmers working on design, code, and test the parts of the programs. This requires the language to be structured so that individual sub-programs or other parts can be separately compiled and executed without the requirement of other parts. Later on, these parts are to be merged into a final program. Separate compilation is one of the major area in programming environment. Separate compilation is difficult because compiling one subprogram may need some information which is present in some other subprogram, or sometimes shared data is also used in the program, due to which separate compilation is not possible. So, to solve this problem, some languages have adopted certain features that add separate compilation. To solve this problem, some languages have adopted certain features. What are those features? First feature, the statement such as extern, EXTERN. The statement such as extern can be used to indicate that particular data is used from other subprogram. The statement such as extern can be used to indicate that particular data is used from other subprograms. Second feature is that languages are scoping rules to hide names. Languages use scoping rules to hide names. One subprogram can be contained within another subprogram. One subprogram in the main program. One subprogram can be contained within another subprogram, so that name of the outer subprograms are known to separately compiled subprogram. In object-oriented programming, the feature like inheritance, can be used to use the shared data. The third feature is that in object-oriented programming, the feature like inheritance can be used to use the shared data. So these are the features in separate compilation. In programming environment, an environment in which the programs can be created and tested. Now this is the creation. After creation, it is the compilation of it. Now testing and debugging. Now this is the second major area in programming environment. Testing and debugging. Many languages contain some features that help in testing and debugging. Many languages contain some features that help in testing and debugging. Now, in that, a breakpoint feature is there in testing and debugging. The breakpoint feature, and second point is the execution trace feature. Now, breakpoint feature in testing and debugging. By this feature, breakpoint feature, the programmer can set the breakpoints in the program. The programmer can set the breakpoints in the program. When the breakpoint is reached during the execution of the execution of the program is interrupted and control is given to the program. The programmer can then inspect the program for testing and debugging. In breakpoint feature, the programmer can set the breakpoint in the program. When the breakpoint is reached during the execution of the program, the execution of the program is interrupted and control is given to the programmer. The programmer can then inspect the program for testing and debugging. This is what the breakpoint feature. Now, second feature is the execution trace feature. Execution trace feature. Now, by this execution trace feature, particular variable or statement can be tagged for tracing during the execution of the program. Execution trace feature, particular variable or statement can be tagged for tracing during the execution of the program. And the third feature is that in this testing and debugging, that is the assertions. The assertions is a conditional expression. Assertions is a conditional expression which is inserted as a separate statement in a program. So these are the features in testing and debugging. Separate compilation and testing and debugging. These are the two major areas in the programming environment influence. Now, environment framework. Environment framework is nothing but the collection of infrastructure services that can be used for program development purpose. Environment framework is nothing but a collection of infrastructure services that can be used for program development purposes. These services are data repository, graphical user interface, security, and communication services. Environment framework. The modern programming environment makes use of Visual Studio.NET for developing the applications using C++, Visual Basic, .NET, JavaScript, JHash, and so on. Environment framework. Unix is an old programming environment and has a strong support for various powerful tools for software production and maintenance. Unix is an old programming environment and has a strong support for various powerful tools for software production and maintenance. So this is all about what the programming environment. Are you getting this? All of you? Any one of you message me? Role of programming language, programming environments. These points clear? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? Yes. Thank you. Now, next point today we are going to discuss is the virtual computers. Virtual computers, then binding and binding times. Virtual computers, then binding and binding times. Now, virtual computers. Virtual machine is a piece of software. Virtual machine is a piece of software which simulates the actual machine environment. Virtual machine is a piece of software which simulates the actual machine environment. An implementation of a programming language requires that the programs in the language are analyzed and then translated into a form that can be run by interpreter. That is on virtual machine first and then on actual real machine. First on the virtual machine first and then on the actual real machine. For a virtual machine environment, the source program is translated into an intermediary abstract form, which is then interpretively executed. This virtual machine is a software computer that, like a physical computer, runs an operating system and application. This virtual machine runs an operating system and application. The virtual machine is comprised of a set of a specification and configuration files and is backed by the physical resources of a host. So there are different kinds of virtual machines. One is this system virtual machine, right? Then process virtual machines. Now, what is this virtual system virtual machines? These virtual system virtual machines also termed full virtualization. Is termed full virtualization. Virtual machines provide a substitute for a real machine. They provide functionality needed to execute entire programming, entire operating system. A hypervisor uses native execution to share and manage hardware, allowing for multiple environments which are isolated from one another, yet exist on the same physical machine. Exist on the same physical machine. Modern hypervisors are hypervisors use hardware assisted virtualization specific hardware primarily from the host CPUs. Now, second is that the process virtual machines. Process virtual machines are designed to execute computer programs. in platform independent environment. Some virtual machines such as QUMU are designed to also emulate different architectures and allow execution of software applications and operating systems written for another CPU or architecture. Operating system level virtualization allows the resources of a computer to be partitioned via the kernel. For a virtual machine environment, the source program is translated into an intermediary abstract form, which is then interpretively executed. The source program first goes through three stages. Such as lexical analyzer, syntax analyzer, and type checker. Source program first goes through three stages. One is the lexical analyzer, second is the syntax analyzer, and third is the type checker. Then the abstract syntax obtained from these three phases is interpreted to get the translated output. And due to this feature, it is possible to execute the abstract code on any desired platform. It is possible to execute the abstract code on any desired platform. For example, suppose Java Virtual Machine (JVM) is kind of a virtual machine which plays an important role in achieving the platform independence. Java Virtual Machine is the kind of virtual machine. JVM is a kind of virtual machine which plays an important role in achieving the platform independence. So this is the virtual machine is a piece of software. In easy words, the virtual computer is a software emulation of a physical computing environment. This is a piece of software which simulates the actual machine environment. This is the software emulation. Virtual machine is the software emulation. Virtual computers are also known as virtual machines. Virtual computers are also known as virtual machines. Task of the virtual computer is to provide one or more simultaneous execution environments in which operating systems or other programs may execute. Task of the virtual computer or virtual machine is to provide one or more simultaneous execution environments in which operating systems, it means Windows XP is one of the operating systems. Windows 10 is also one of the operating systems. Both the operating system we can execute on this virtual computer. But in this real computer, right, we cannot execute more than one operating system simultaneously. But in virtual computers, we can execute more than one operating system. So it is mentioned that task of the virtual computer is to provide one or more simultaneous execution environments in which operating systems or other programs may execute. Means one or more operating system we can run. One or more programs we can execute on the virtual computer. Not in actual real machine. Are you getting this? What do you mean by a virtual machine? All of you? Nobody is giving me any answer. Either yes or no or something. We are sir, understanding this. Not all. This communication should be from both sides, your side as well as my side. Yes, my dear students. Desktop is one of the machine. Laptop is also one of the machine. Smartphone is also one of the machine. On such machines, we can install this virtual machine. This is what is the virtual machine? It is one of the software in which this is one of the app. Suppose it is also one of the app. It is one of the software we are installing on the real machine. It means it either on the desktop or on the laptop or on the smartphone. On this virtual machine, what is the most advantage point is that one and the same time we can run more than one operating system. Like Windows XP also we can run, Windows 10 also we can run. But in actual machine, actual real machine means either your desktop or your laptop or your smartphone. On that, one at a time, only one operating system we can run. Only one program we can execute. Whereas, in case of virtual machine, it is one of the app, it is one of the software which is installed on the actual machine. On that, we can execute more than one operating system. We can execute more than one program simultaneously. This is what the virtual machine. Getting it? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
अरे मग कोणीतरी एकाने मेसेज पाठवायचं थोडं yes sir, no sir, yes, nothing messages are there. Otherwise you can unmute and talk with me. It takes a few seconds only, yes sir or no sir. It takes for this, it takes few seconds. Unmute and say me. Can I proceed then?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Now our next point is the binding and binding times. Right. Now what is the binding and binding times? The binding, a source file has many names whose properties need to be determined. any program contain various entities. Any program contain various entities such as variables, routines, control statements, and so on. Any program contain such entities. Variables are there, routines are there, control statements are there, and so on. These entities have special properties. These entities have special properties. Variables have its special property. Routines have its special property. Control statements have its special properties. These properties are called attributes. These properties are called attributes. For example, programming entity, routine, or function has number of parameters. Has number of parameters. Type of parameters. Parameter passing methods, and so on. Specifying the nature of attributes. Specifying the nature of attributes is called the binding. What is binding? Specifying the nature of attributes is called binding. And what do you mean by attribute? The properties. The properties are called attributes. Now, what do you mean the properties? Now, the variables, routines, control statements. These are the special properties. These properties are called attributes. And specifying the nature of attributes is called binding. A source file has many names whose properties need to be determined. The meaning of these properties. The meaning of these properties means variables, routines, control statements, and so on. The meaning of these properties might be determined at a different phases of life cycle. At a different phases of life cycle of a program. Examples of such properties include the set of values associated with the type of variable, the memory location of the compiled function, the value stored in a variable, and so on. Binding is the act of associating properties with the names. This is called the binding. And now, what do you mean by the binding times? The time at which the choice for binding occurs is called binding atoms. The time at which the choice for binding occurs is called binding times. Binding time is the moment in the program's life cycle when this association occurs. Binding time is the moment in the program's life cycle when this association occurs. Many properties of the programming language are defined during its creation. For instance, the meaning of the keywords such as while or for in C, the size of the integer data type in Java are properties defined at language design time. There are various classes of binding types. And these are represented. One is the execution time, second is the translation time, third is the language implementation time, and fourth is the language definition time. There are various classes of binding types. And these are represented. One is the execution time, second is the translation time, third is the language implementation time, and fourth one is the language definition time. First one is the execution time. That is the dynamic binding. Execution time, it means dynamic binding. Translation time means static binding. It's a static binding. Language implementation time, it is also static binding. Language definition time, it is also static binding. Translation time, language implementation time, and language definition time. All these classes are static binding. And only one execution time is the dynamic binding. In detail, the execution time, translation time, language implementation time, and language definition time. This part we will discuss in our next lecture. Can I stop here today?
Yes, sir.
Today we discuss four different points: role of programming environment, programming uh, role of programming languages, program environments, virtual computer, and binding types. So today we will stop over here. The classes of binding types we will discuss in the next lecture. Anybody want to discuss with me any other point? How is going on? Is same thing. And I am discussing with you. कसं काय चाललंय बाळांनो?
Sir, voice is very low.
आवाज येत नाही का? आला आता?
अभी आ रहा है सर प्रॉपर.
हाँ, तो मुझे ये पूछना है कैसा चल रहा है एसी पार्ट 2? Any problem or any subject? Yes, no. Sir, we don't know anything. Huh?
Sir, M3.
Yes, my dear students. Can I stop here?
Yes, sir.